compare to you. I am so strong. Okay, now I'm mad. It's squashing time. Yeah. Wow, you're terrible.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mengs, and today I bring you guys to yet another Fire Emblem character spotlight. Today we travel back to the continent of Elise to take a look at a child unit that I personally had very little experience with prior to making the spotlight. It was an interesting piece of work to say the least, and I hope you enjoy this one. Today we take a look at the little devious mannequin. Nah.
Let's go.
Seriously, okay, that's her name. Nah. It's a stupid name.
Okay, now I'm mad.
Na is the daughter of the mannequin Nowi, making her a half-dragon. She grew up in the alternate future of Elise, where Grima successfully managed to take over the world. In this timeline, Na's parents died when she was very young, leaving her without any memories of them, though she did keep her mother's ring as a keepsake to remember her by. Orphaned at a young age, Na was sent off to live at a farm with one of her father's former war allies. However, due to her draconic heritage, she was shunned by her new family, who treated her coldly, never fully accepting her into their home. Na tried everything to get her new family to love her. She behaved like a model child, she did chores without being asked, and even went outside at night in dragon form to defend the farm from Risen. Despite this, the family continued to treat her with disdain, and Na ended up feeling alone and unwanted. Na eventually joined Lucina and the other children from the future in the Awakening ritual that sent them back in time, though due to the ritual scattering them, Na ended up in the Manor of Lost Souls and was forced to fend off against hordes of Risen until Crumb's army showed up to save her. Once Na reunited with her mother, she showed her the ring, struggling to hold back tears as she did. Crumb was happy to let Na join his army, whom she aided in the battle against Grima.
Okay, I'm with you.
Na follows a similar trend as many of the other Awakening children, with her personality being the polar opposite of her parents. Just like Brady behaves like a commoner in front of his noble mother Maribel, and Inigo is a flirtatious womanizer compared to his blushing shy mother Olivia, Na tries to act like a grown-up in contrast to her childish mother Nowi. Na wants everyone to get the impression that she's calm, logical, collected, and unemotional, but we see on more than one occasion that this is merely a facade. In reality, Na is very much still a child at heart, and all she wants is to be accepted and to make friends. But due to her harsh upbringing on the farm, she often forms a thick shell around herself, which makes it difficult for people to get close to her. On the occasions when she does try to take the initiative, she often ends up insulting or even scaring away the person she wants to make contact with.
Okay.
Once we delve deeper into Na's support conversations, we see a lot of evidence that she's a lot more like her mother than she cares to admit. She is playful, childlike, and curious, but also a little rude, devious, and extremely stubborn. Na also has a slightly creepy, disturbing side to her that shows up in a select few supports, which we'll delve more into later. In her support conversation with her mother Nowi, Na is frustrated because she thinks she misplaced her Dragonstone, but it turns out that Nowi was the one who took it away from her because she wanted not to play with her. Na is frustrated that her mother is always so carefree and childish despite them fighting in a war, and thinks that her time is better spent studying rather than playing. After Nowi becomes increasingly persistent, Na eventually caves in and agrees to play with her, but after a few hours she is completely exhausted and wants to rest, while Nowi is still full of energy. Na then has a realization that you can build endurance and fortitude through play and thus grow stronger, and this was what Nowi was trying to teach her all along. They have a moment of bonding and understanding and grow closer as a result. This particular support is one of the better one Na has, and in my opinion, one of the better child-parent supports in the game as a whole, but mostly because it shows that Nowi isn't always a carefree child, but that there is some wisdom in her actions. It is refreshing to see her actually behave like a parent for once, like when she teaches Na that overusing a Dragonstone can be dangerous, something which Na was not aware of. In her support conversation with her father, which is the same regardless of who it is, Na shows her curious side by poking and prodding into why her dad decided to get together with Nowi, a question I think any sensible person would ask. Her father gets visibly uncomfortable by the question, as Na is wondering how he could have fallen in love with such a childlike person, and he initially gets very upset as he doesn't feel comfortable discussing it with her. When he sees his daughter Na get sad, however, he realizes that she wasn't being nosy, but just wanted to know more about her parents. Eventually, he agrees to tell her everything she wants to know about their relationship, which makes Na very happy. This conversation feels a bit strange because it sort of beats around the bush a little with regards to the whole Nowi controversy, but it covers itself up by pretending to focus on her childlike behavior rather than her childlike appearance. I don't know about you guys, but my localization senses are tingling right here. And wouldn't you know, looking up the Japanese script, it is clear that Na originally was directly accusing her father outright of being a lolicon in this support. Just look at this line right here. She's so childish. I don't see how you can see her as a woman. Or is it that perhaps Dad only likes young girls? I don't know why, but the moment I saw the support, I just knew that something was being covered up, and I actually think it's a shame. I mean, why not just leave the whole thing in? If you're gonna have lollybait in your game, you might as well show some self-awareness about it. But oh well, I guess you can have a lolly in your game as long as you don't directly talk about it. That's a big no-no. Or I guess we could say, a big nah-nah. I'll show myself out. Na's support with Tiki is actually a really good one. Maybe it's just the fact that I enjoy staring at Tiki's cleavage every time she's on screen, but I actually legitimately enjoyed this one. In this support, Tiki teaches Na about a bunch of interesting facts regarding Manakits, like for example that their scales and fangs grow sharper over time, and that their scales harden after being hit, and a bunch of other interesting facts that Na eats right up, seeing as she's super curious about her draconic heritage. The support then takes a dark, unexpected, sad turn as Tiki teaches Na about the harsh reality of their heritage, that being the fact that both of them will outlive everyone else dear to them, and that in the end, all of their friends will die. Na initially finds this very depressing, but Tiki teaches her that this curse is also a blessing in disguise, as it will make Na treasure the moments with her friends even more, and that Na can also serve as sort of a historian, passing down the tales and legends of her friends onto their children and even grandchildren when they grow up, like Tiki does with the tales of Marth and his friends. In the end, Tiki makes the suggestion that they should become friends, so that at least that way, they both each have one person to share their long lifespan with. This is definitely one of Na's better supports. It shows off her curious side and establishes Tiki as an older mentor figure, something which isn't very common in Awakening. This relationship is further explored in the Harvest Scramble DLC, in which Tiki asks Na to show her around the festival. Tiki sees Na's enthusiasm and she sees her younger self in her. Tiki explains that having lived as long as she has, she started to emotionally disconnect from the world, but all the same she misses being able to smile so freely. Na then agrees to help Tiki see the world through her eyes. Not only does this conversation further show off Na's playful side, but it gives some insight into why Tiki can seem so detached from the world in Awakening. The relationship with Tiki and Na does a wonderful job with developing both of their characters. I really wish Awakening had more conversations like this. Moving on, Na's romantic support with Robin is pretty simple, short and sweet, but reveals a lot about her backstory. In their support, Robin notes that Na is eating plants and weeds, even poisonous berries that she finds growing out in the wild. He attempts to make her stop, but she insists on doing it. Realizing that she isn't going to listen to him or accept his help, Robin then cooks up some food and tricks her into eating it, claiming that it is to further his own skills as a cook. Once Na tastes his cooking, she is absolutely overjoyed, almost as if it is her first time tasting real food, which may actually be the case considering how neglected she is. The two bond over this, and eventually it leads to a romance, with Robin continuing to cook for her. This support is sort of sad, and reveals that Na has mostly been forced to fend for herself for most of her life. While she was probably given food at the farm she grew up on, it's clear that she wasn't welcome there, and it's not hard to imagine that for the most part she was on her own, which explains why she has learned to eat what she can find out in the wild, even if it is hardly edible. This support also reveals the rather dense side of Na, as Robin is trying to instruct her that they have actual food back at camp, but she insists on eating some poisonous berry she found just to survive. It's not until Robin decides to trick her into testing his cooking that she realizes how good food can be. Na being rather dense and difficult to get in touch with is a common theme among her supports. In her support with Yarn, the focus is mostly on the young Taguel, who feels inferior next to a big powerful Manakit, claiming that they are more amazing beasts than mere rabbits, which honestly isn't wrong. Yarn struggles to find his inner warrior, and mostly wishes all the fighting would just stop. There really isn't much to say here. It ends with some brigands attempting to kidnap Na, and due to her being unable to reach her Dragonstone in time, she is helpless but eventually rescued by Yarn, who activates his inner warrior when Na is in danger. I don't really have much to say about the support, as it doesn't really focus a lot on Na, but I do wonder, what happens when a Manakete and a Taguel have kids? Do they become like dragon rabbits? On second thought, I'd rather not know. In Na's support with male Morgan, we get some interesting exposition into how Naga works as a deity, as we learn that Na frequently prays to her. Not only does Na pray, but Naga actually responds, even giving her direct commands, such as asking her to find a very precious flower that is super rare and super difficult to find. Morgan, being the love-struck little boy he is, offers to help her with this, and after a while he returns with the flower in hand, claiming that he merely stumbled across it outside of camp, though Na notes that Morgan is covered up in bruises and scars, insinuating that he went through great trouble to find the flower. This support is very cute. It mostly shows Morgan being helpful, but it also reveals a more religious side of Na. It isn't very hard to imagine why Na would resort to praying, as she is shown to be very lonely, and she probably uses prayer as a way of coping with said loneliness. It is also unclear if Na is actually in direct communication with Naga through these prayers, as that seems to be a very odd gift for a regular Manakete to possess, but since we never really get any insight into these prayers other than the words of Na themselves, we can't really know for sure if they are a real thing or not. We also can see a somewhat more playful side of Naga, who supposedly tells Morgan and Na to get a room during their support. Na's support with female Morgan is one of the more meta supports out there in Awakening, as they are literally discussing Wormslayers. Wormslayers have always had a presence in any Fire Emblem game with dragons in it, but funnily enough they aren't really talked about all that much. There's that one line where Ashura mentions them briefly in Fates, but really I'm surprised this isn't something Manaketes discuss more frequently. Anyway, in this support, Na fears being cut down by a Wormslayer on the battlefield, so she is practicing a technique called blade catching, an ancient martial arts technique who sorta looks like this. Morgan offers to help her in her training, delivering chops with her bare arms, and then starts hitting Na with her tomes, delivering one of the best lines I've ever seen in Awakening when Na asks if it's okay to use books as clubs. This is serious training. The tomes will understand. Seriously, that's golden. Anyway, it takes her a while, but eventually Na masters the technique, only to learn that it is completely useless, as her arms are super short in dragon form, and thus she wouldn't be able to pull it off when it counts the most. This is a funny, comic relief style support, and one of the more enjoyable ones I've seen in Awakening, as it's interesting to see an actual weapon being mentioned by name. It also has a rather cute ending, as it sort of have to end badly. It would be kinda silly if a support ended up eliminating a Manakete's weakness to dragon slaying weapons, though it would also be sorta cool when I think about it. In Na's support with Owain, the topic of play comes up once again, as Owain wants to play a game with her called What's That Breath Attack, where Owain is being Owain, shouting out random names such as Fiery Ice Death Strike and Super Dinosaur Death Gornado. Na is not particularly interested in playing games, however, and when Owain insists, she gets annoyed, saying that she's not a child, despite looking like one. This support is mostly a comic relief one, again similar to the one with Morgan, but it also shows Na's inability to connect with her inner child, despite Owain trying to be helpful and supportive. In Na's support with Cynthia, she is once again seen in a more passive role, as the eccentric Cynthia wants her to transform into a dragon so that she can pose on top of her, whatever that means. Na gets annoyed, but Cynthia keeps insisting until Na gets visibly upset. It turns out, however, that Manaketes have the ability to notice a person's intent by their scents, and once Na realizes that, she understands that Cynthia is just trying to bond with her as a friend, not just trying to use her as a posing pedestal. Again, this support shows that Na can be incredibly dense at times. She wants friends, but when one literally walks up to her, Na rejects her because she finds her annoying and thinks she's just out to use her. This thick shell that she's formed around herself due to her upbringing comes back to bite her time and time again, although Cynthia manages to penetrate it in the end. Alright, so we have now officially reached the end of Na's quote-unquote cute supports, and now we come to a darker and more disturbing side of her personality. These last three supports are arguably some of the worst ones in the entire game. Some might find them cute, but I personally find them to be rather disturbing. Let's begin with her support with Inigo, which starts off like any other support that has Inigo in it, aka with lots of flirting, though mostly with other women, as Inigo views Na as too young for him. Well, at least there are some places Inigo won't tread. Yet. Na states that if Inigo would just shut up, women would probably come to him, rather than him having to chase them around all the time. But Inigo states that he is simply unable to avoid flirting with women. After he calls Na too young to understand, she decides to put on a show, transforming into a dragon in front of him to show him how big she can really be, which scares the living daylight out of him. The support then takes a rather dark turn, as Na starts to come onto Inigo rather strongly. She already established that she was sort of into him in their B support, but Inigo basically said she was too young for him. But now, taking advantage of his intimidated state, Na realizes that she can have her way with him. She then literally threatens to eat Inigo if he doesn't marry her. No fucking joke. Inigo tries to protest, but Na follows up with the sounds chomp chomp to intimidate him into accepting the proposal. What makes the support so incredibly creepy is that Inigo literally does not seem to want this at all, but he is so deathly afraid of Na that he has no choice but to oblige. This is just one of the many examples of Na forcefully inserting herself into a relationship. Let's continue with her support with Jerome, which is less creepy but also displays this side of her rather well. In their support, Na is literally chasing Jerome around, trying to rip off his mask. Jerome's mask is a central theme in many of his supports, and Na is certainly not the first person to try and take it off him, but her persistence in this support is on a pretty different scale compared to the other ones, as she is literally chasing him around, yelling his name, and trying to grab him. In fact, their entire C to A support is literally just a massive Benny Hill theme encounter, and it's not until their S support where they actually have a real chat. Now granted, in this support Jerome seems pleased that Na is showing him affection, which is more than Inigo ever did, and he actually consents to their marriage, but still, it shows a very weird, persistent side of Na. Finally, we come to the top of the shit mountain in this support conversation between Na and Laurent. And yes, before the pronunciation police enters the comment section, I am very aware that it's pronounced Laurent. But unlike Camus, which is very easy to say, I don't even want to attempt to say this name correctly. I'm not French, so I'm saying Laurent. Yes, I am fully aware I'm pronouncing it wrong, and I know it's gonna trigger your autism, but just fucking deal with it. Anyway, this support is perhaps the weirdest and freakiest one of the bunch. Laurent, being Laurent, is casually observing Na, as he does with everyone in the army, seeing as that's literally his job, but Na takes it the wrong way, literally accusing him of being a creep who likes young girls, seeing as Na looks very much underage in her human form. This was never a problem in any of her other romantic supports, but I guess Laurent has glasses and looks a bit creepy, so he gets the worst of it. Now, despite Laurent attempting to explain himself to her on several occasions, she keeps accusing him of being a creepy pervert, and even goes as far as threatening to tell everyone in the army, just to ruin his reputation. Laurent is visibly shaken by this behavior and tries again and again to reconcile with Na, but she refuses to listen, branding him a perverted stalker. It isn't until the end of their A support where she actually starts listening to him and finally decides to give him a chance. But then, things truly take over a turn in their S support, as Na admits she actually liked the idea of Laurent being a creepy stalker, and misses it. You heard correctly, not only did Na accuse Laurent of being a creepy pedophile, and attempted to ruin his reputation by telling everyone about it, she admits to enjoying the prospect of it, and wants it to happen more. This is just one of those supports you have to read multiple times and ask yourself if you truly caught what was in it, or if you maybe simply misunderstood it. I mean, maybe there was some translation issues here. Heavens no, I want to believe the writers were trying to be cute here, but this particular support makes Na seem like an absolute terrible human being. These last few support conversations aside, Na's personality has many sides to it, which is refreshing considering Awakening's characters are usually pretty simple. She has a tragic backstory that affects the way she acts. In reality, she is just a neglected child who wants to be loved and accepted, but she covers herself up in a facade of adult behavior. At times she can be extremely persistent and even downright mean, but mostly because she is clumsy when it comes to social interactions. Occasionally, when she lets her guard down, her playful side comes out, showing how similar she is to her mother, but that side reveals itself very rarely. According to Tiki, Na is the first half-Manakete to have been born in Elise. Na's birthday is on March 29, the same day Binding Blade was released in Japan. Na has the best teeth in Crumb's army. Na shares her English voice actress, Eden Rigel, with Sumia as well as Jenny.
Ha, I'm not scared of you.
After the events of Awakening, Na, who still had many years ahead of her, devoted herself to teaching future generations about Grima, to prevent them from repeating past mistakes.
I'm here to help.
Na is first available as a unit in Paralog 16, Daughter to Dragons, which is unlocked on the minimap after Lucina's recruitment once Nowi obtains an S-rank support with any member of Chrom's army. To recruit Na, either talk to her with Nowi or Chrom, or clear out Old Arisen, and she will automatically join you at the end of the map. Being a child unit, the base stats and growth rates you see listed here will not represent the Na you encounter in the game. Instead, she will receive a mix of her parents' bases and growths, as well as one skill from each parent selected by the player, but her base class will always be a Manakete. Manaketes are exceptionally strong in Awakening, having 1-2 range, Dragonstone buffs, excellent damage output, and very strong bulk, with Na being no exception. While she may start out a little weak at level 10, training her is no issue at all, and once she gets rolling, she'll easily outperform other Manaketes like Nowi and Tiki. Child units in Awakening are absurdly strong, and even without planning their inheritance at all, they easily surpass the rest of your units once they gain a few levels. When deciding what father you want to select for Na, you want to focus on physical stats. Manaketes in Awakening hit on defense, not resistance like Fates, so magic isn't something Na needs to worry about. This means that you want to select a father with a lot of strength if you can. You can either decide to focus on making Na a slow but hard-hitting tank by picking someone like Callum, Frederick, or Gregor, or you can attempt to focus more on speed by selecting someone fast like Gaius or Lonku. But at the end of the day, Na is naturally slow, so getting her to reliably double on higher difficulties is going to be tricky, though selecting a fast father might help her avoid getting doubled herself. A pitfall to avoid when selecting a father is focusing too much on Na's inherited growth rates. Levels can be reset in Awakening with second seals, so if your desire is to cap out stats, you'll certainly be able to do just that. What you want to focus on is mainly skills, maximum stats, as well as the reclassing options given to her. It is absolutely recommended that you keep Na a Manakete, as she retains her weakness to Wormslayers even when class changed, but that doesn't mean you can't use reclassing to pick up some useful skills, especially considering Nowi is very limited in the skills she can pass down herself. If you pair Nowi up with either Donal or Gaius, they will both pass down the Pegasus Knight class line, which allows Na to pick up the king of all Awakening skills, Gale Force. If you do select Donal, avoid the temptation of passing down Aptitude. Plus 20% to all growth rates may seem incredibly busted on the child unit, but remember that growth rates aren't the end-all be-all of Awakening. You should rather focus on inheriting a skill Na would normally not have access to. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what father you select for Na. She will grow into an absolute monster regardless of her parentage, but if you are the player who likes to plan ahead, just make sure you avoid a magic-based father and decide beforehand what kind of a Na you want. Do you want an invulnerable frontline dragon tank, or do you want someone less durable but more capable of dishing out damage? Select either a strong or speedy father based on your choice, and make sure you pass down skills that complement this playstyle. Whatever you do, just make sure you don't piss off this cute little lolly dragon too much, and maybe she won't threaten you into marrying her.
It's squashing time!
Reading through Na's supports was quite an experience, to say the least. I started off feeling rather sympathetic towards her and her tragic upbringing. I found her clumsy attempts at reaching out to others charming, and I greatly enjoyed reading the supports which were all discussing the life of a Manakete and such. As I was slowly starting to like Na, I came across her other side, which involves her intimidating people into marrying her, calling people creepy pedophiles for merely looking at her, and then admitting she actually likes it and wants them to continue, not to mention running after people and trying to tear their clothes off. Na is certainly not a one-dimensional character, I'll give her that, but holy hell does she have some skeletons in her closet which manifests in her behavior in very strange ways. There is a point where you simply cannot make the excuse that she's just a cute lolly who doesn't know better, and have to acknowledge the fact that Na can be a pretty shitty person at times. Still, having flaws doesn't necessarily make me review someone in a negative light. I actually sort of enjoy characters with flaws, though maybe not quite like this. Though I do think it makes them appear more human, even if we're talking about a half-dragon here. I will therefore rate Na's character 3 out of 5 stars. She behaves absolutely disgusting at times, but at least she's sort of interesting, and at the very least, she's not boring. I actually don't mind most aspects of Na's design. She clearly has this whole small and cute but still dangerous thing going on, and I think that in particular, the pose in her official art reflects this very well, although Mina absolutely hates it. Apparently it's a very difficult picture to work with in terms of cropping it into a thumbnail. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan of the garter stockings with the hearts on them, even if I understand that this is to match her mother's outfit. I just don't think that any elements of Nowi's design should be translated over into another character. Ever. Aside from this, I find Na to certainly be leagues ahead of her mother, even if it's not a very difficult task to accomplish. It's hard to look away from the fact that there's certainly an aspect of pita bait design to Na's character, but at least she covers herself up and isn't overly sexualized. And I do like her stylish cape and white dress. Her hairstyle is cool as well. I rate Na's design 3 out of 5 stars.
Hey, thanks.
This one is always tough whenever child units are involved because they vary so much based on their parentage and how you build them, not to mention they come into the game at complete random intervals depending on how you build your supports. Still, Na is easily one of the strongest child units in Awakening due to the insane Manakite class, so no matter what you do with her, she's going to be a 4-star plus unit regardless, so that's the rating I'm giving her.
I am so strong!
Thank you so much for watching this Fire Emblem character spotlight. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and a comment, and also remember to click the stupid notification bell, it really helps out my channel a lot. I would like to give a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much for everything you do. By becoming a patron yourself, you help out the channel directly, and you also get access to many different rewards depending on your tier, such as a unique Discord role that grants you access to my Patreon lounge. If you become a silver tier patron today, you can request your very own Fire Emblem character spotlight, along with a drawing of your choice done personally by my designer Mina. I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to my patron Lopo, who requested this spotlight of Na alongside this drawing as his silver tier reward. Thank you so much for your continued support, it really means a lot. I hope you enjoyed your spotlight and your drawing. Lastly, I want to thank my scriptwriter team, who consists of Sonagi, Heliosan, Mecha, and the newly added Lunaris. I have also linked any sources used in the spotlight in the video description below. If you want to see more spotlights, check out the playlist linked in front of you to see the previous ones I've done. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, you are a true fan. My name's Mangs, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.